the next ultimate question is, did Enugu State get it right? We're joined now in the studio by Dr. AMBROSE IGBOKE, who is the Chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria, Enugu State chapter. Dr. AMBROSE, I think you're the best person to bring on board right now because there is profound controversy, confusion, crisis, as some describe it, following this move by the Enugu electricity regulator. What is your overall appreciation of matters in the electricity sector between NEC and the subnational regulators as this matter continues to arise?
Before I come to that, I would like to just lay down a little bit of historical antecedents of what we know today as the power distribution and generating companies. Nigeria started experimenting with electricity, I think, in the 1880s. Then somewhere around 1886, the electricity supply company started in Jos, where they were using this to blast mine. Remember, by this time, before then, there have been just generators that were used to power some critical colonial offices. And then until the people were mining in Jos, established their company, Electricity Supply Company of Nigeria. And that's, I think, 1856. And then after that, United Africa Company established another one power company in Sapele to help them log goods and all those stuff. And then there was, a conscious effort now to have, a power holding for the country after the amalgamation in 1914. So in 1950, ECN was created, Electricity Company of Nigeria, that midwifed us into the Nigerian independence. Also, by the time Nigerian independence, there was no transmitting, like it was independent generating company. So the first attempt, I think, 1962, to consciously create a national grid. They are linking these different transmitting, generating companies through, I think, 132 kVA lines from Lagos, Shagamu, and then connecting the western, what we call the western line today. And then later, we started generating electricity from water, where we have the Niger Dam Authority, NDA. But in 1972, the Niger Dam Authority that was generating electricity from Kanji Dam, and also the ECN, which is Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, were merged to form what we call the almighty NEPA those days. Well, most of us grew up in NEPA, National Electric Power Authority. And then it stayed till. So federal government was in the grip of controlling power. It was basically the exclusive list for a long time. But some companies were left to, I know that in Jos, they were having one or two companies that were still generating power. But they now put a cap. I think if you produce more than 10 megawatts or something, you have to take it to the national grid. You are not allowed to produce more than that. I remember that when Lagos State wanted to do something with Enron, when Tinubu was governor, it didn't fall through because the generator capacity, and also they had to send to the national, you burn power too. And a lot of subnationals tried to produce power, but they were, the law said sent to the national grid. So it was until 2005, during the electricity power sector reforms, that conscious efforts were now done to unbundle this thing and remove some kind of, relax the grip of the federal government on power. So by 2014, that led to the PHCN, the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, which now led to the final privatization of the sector in 2014. But that was the federal government still held on to transmission, still held on to the bulk electricity, those things. But it was the generation and the distribution that were released by the federal government to private sector. So having come to that, we still found out that we're still having the same issues because the regulator was still at the center. Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission was still running. So the DISCOs just took over the assets, the transmitting assets, the distribution assets of the PHCN, or what we used to know as NEPA. So nothing changed much. And the privatization showed that a lot of the DISCOs were not ready for business. I think a lot of people in the oil and gas sector came into it. And I think they felt that it was still business as usual in the oil sector, where you ship crude oil or bring in crude oil under 12 weeks, turn around is under 12 weeks, your money is there in dollars. We had issues, serious issues, so that by 2016, I knew I was part of a documentary that did the intervention of the CBN. CBN has pumped in a lot of intervention force for the these private companies that are running the discos to see whether they can stay afloat. So they have been struggling, and the unfortunate thing is that they have been relaying all the costs to the consumer. So even the things that we're supposed to do, like metering, like even the transformers. So we were still in a situation where NEPA was there, where wherever, even if it's a community that bought transformer, they say it's public assets. So you don't own it. And these companies, these discos still continue to that tradition, that, a cake tradition that is not in tandem with modern economic realities. So when they came, they didn't know what to do. So they were just interested in increasing tariffs. So federal government was forced to subsidize also. And although there have been, the kind of some assaults in the policies, sometimes you remove, the last time they removed subsidy in the petroleum sector, they removed subsidy in electricity, they removed subsidy in telecoms, they still came back again and started subsidizing again. So when we found ourselves, back to your question, is this. In 2023, the regulatory act of it was kind of rejigged, and then we were having, it was shifted directly from exclusive lists to some kind of concurrent, where the subnational.
That's from the legislative list, rather.
From the exclusive lists of the federal government to kind of concurrent lists, because the exclusive list is only federal government has control of the things in, exclusive, while the federal government and states can have things to do with other sectors that are in concurrent lists, like education and the rest. But like defense, aviation, and some of these things control, currency and all those things are in the exclusive lists. Okay, only federal government can do it. That was how the power sector was until it was fully devolved, to the subnationals. Now, what has happened is that it's a new law. Enugu State was the first to test the law by, making now its own state regulations, making its own state legislation to create the electricity regulatory commission, and it has started working. Ekiti, I think, followed, but Enugu State has been, I think, the forefront of it. And what is happening now is that for the first time, they're actually now stamping their foot down and saying, look, the tariff you're charging for Bank A, it's not commensurate. The mathematics is not, according to the chairman, it's not sentiment. You are being subsidized at some costs, so your rate cost is 45 naira. Therefore, you are not reflecting the cost of the subsidy in what you are passing on to the consumers. So after the calculations and all the things they need to do in the power, which is highly technical, at the end of the day, they arrive at the costs which we are running now. So before we know it, the National Electricity Regulatory Commission came and said no, that you don't have powers to regulate a disco that is getting its own power from the national grid. So that is where this thing lies now. And those who have been licensed before the Regulatory Act of 2023 was done, you don't have powers over them as well. Now, it's a little bit confusing because when you say somebody is regulating, it means it's a holistic thing. Regulation is holistic. Therefore, you cannot cherry pick on what is regulation and what's not. And that is why the Enugu State government is now regulating EEDC, which is directly, having those access to national grid and the rest. This is regulating main power distribution company. Main power is the subco, the sub-company of EEDC, which is now just its operation is within Enugu State alone. So within that context, why is Narek saying that it cannot regulate something that is within only its precepts? So that is and the EERC has its own viewpoint, perspective about the matter. Narek also has his own. But Narek, according to the statement, they said they will continue having conversations with EERC and see. One of the things Narek said was that if EERC is saying that we have to regulate, therefore they have to pay for the subsidy that the federal government is paying to main power. And it is say no. That the Constitution of the Federal Republic talked about Gencos and transmission, but he purposely did not talk about the discos having the exclusive power to NERIC. That it is about, they left the disco because they know that reform came and then it's for the states to be able to distribute. So it's a new law, and these things are, tests of when you have something, a new phenomenon. It's good to have these things so that you can test them.
I like how you said, it's testing, because some people feel as if this is a real danger, that the stance of NEC on this matter, the pushback the Enugu regulator is getting, is very dangerous, because what you're saying is you're not sure of what exactly you're granting, because the idea of states being able to control the price of electricity was quite prominent when this Electricity Act was finally being enforced. So at this point, it's many critics of this are against this whole long-term effect.
Duly consultations before those amendments law were passed, right? Did they do the due diligence of doing consulting each sector and institution?
Now, Oji, that question is one, because you're seeing seeing this Electricity Act going again to the Senate to be amended to the Electricity Act Amendment Bill of 2025. So then you have the national regulator also coming again to say that, oh, this is not, you can't do it this way, but you gave them power initially. So I think all indications answer your question may show that they did not take a lot of things into consideration. And now you cannot, even in journalism, you have this saying, violenti non fit injuria. You can't grant an interview, you can't allow a journalist to take your comments and then turn around and say, you don't want that to be published, because you have already accepted for that interview to be granted. So these two things, first of all, going to try to amend the bill, even though it's not NEC that is pushing for that, at least it's not at the front of that. And also the fact that they're pushing back against Enugu could even show that there are many things that they did not really understand the gravity of. But now the question should be, is it too late for them?
No, for me, I am thinking that these federal agencies have been granted too much powers in the past to undo and undo. So apart from, statutory exclusive lists, companies, parastatals, and like the CBN, for example, maybe the military, even the police should not be in an exclusive list, and so many other things. We are too used to command and control structure that the military handed over to us. So somebody is an agency, he feels that he must, in all the states, subnationals must answer to them because they are the overall boss, even when an act has passed it. So I think the major thing now is, who is NERIC defending? Is NERIC more interested in pushing costs to the consumers or protecting the consumers? The NERIC is supposed to play two roles. It's supposed to protect the consumer. It's supposed to also protect the investors who are in the sector. But it seems that only protecting investors, they are not thinking of the consumer. And then in Enugu State, they have not even questioned. One thing I found very curious is that they have not questioned the mathematics and the breakdown of the costing by Enugu Regulatory Commission.
That is why we have to bring in the angle.
They were rather being sentimental about, oh, we are not supposed to regulate.
Dr. Ambrose, is it being sentimental, or is this a game of interest? Are we seeing a case where NEC is the ultimate body, but you have stakeholders within NEC that possibly may have been benefiting from what used to be, and now EERC has come out and is saying, no, we can actually make it better for our consumers? So is it NEC, or are we looking at stakeholders within the commission?
From this action, EERC has exposed a lot of things. I didn't even know that the federal government is subsidizing up to more than 60 naira, like 66 naira for electricity distribution, transmission. Now, the cost has been made, and we find out that the actual cost is a little bit above 100 naira, but have been subsidized by the federal government above 60 naira. So the actual cost is at 45 naira of this. And they're like saying, why are the citizens, consumers still paying for what government has subsidized? So I think some people in America, you are right, may not be comfortable with this, because this is something that was opaque. This was something that was hidden, and now it has been thrown to the public domain by the Enugu State Electricity Regulatory Commission. Now, I will not also be surprised by your assumptions that, some people might be benefiting from the system, because the Minister for Power in the past has actually threatened us that if the electricity tariff is not increased, then Nigeria will plunge into darkness. He said this. And I remember coming on air on many occasions to say that the man should be fired, because it was a statement of economic sabotage, saying that the national power sector will be shut down if, that is a sabotage, economic sabotage, a statement of economic sabotage proportion. But nothing happened. So for somebody now who is supposed to defend the government, defend the people, coming now to support and back the other people that say you must increase tariff, also suggests some of those things. Whose interest is NERC, supporting? Which interest is it backing? Because they are supposed, before they issue a statement, the statement was so swift. I didn't know that Nigerian regulatory authority could respond so fast like that. But when a consumer makes complaints, it's not that fast in response. But now they're quickly.
Sometimes the swiftness of a response is also a sign, as we've learned, of some bigger picture. Now the question is, this is concerning the conspiracy or alleged seeming conspiracy of silence. EEDC has been in this sector before. EEDC never, to the best of our knowledge, publicized that this was a subsidy that Enugu market and other states could have been enjoying. I mean, judging by how fast NERC responded, it could appear to some people that maybe nobody wanted to be at the forefront of that kind of consumer-oriented agenda. That's what I would say on the first thought. This action by the Enugu regulator has exposed so much across the value chain. But the real question now is NERC really supporting the subnational regulators? Judging by their body language, they keep saying we'll dialogue, we'll talk, we'll continue to discuss it. But judging by their actions, are they really supportive of the subnational regulators? Because you're seeing subtle things that appear like subtle blackmail. Things like the state government will have to start subsidizing if the regulator makes that kind of decision. I mean, you're clearly trying to make people to be against what the regulator is doing. Dr. Ambrose, help us to understand this.
One of the defense against what the Enugu State government have said is that the NERC is agitated, they're panicking, maybe they have something to hide. Why would they be panicking? Because if your argument is that federal government has subsidy, where does the federal government make money from? It's from the subnationals, including Enugu State. And that is why every month there is this federal allocation, allocation where people share money accruable to the federal government across the 3 tiers: the federal government, the states, and the local government areas. So if there is money in the budget, monthly budget or annual budget, that is now set aside and used for subsidy, that means all the states contributed to that subsidies. All the local government areas contributed to that subsidy. So it's an aberration of fact to say that the federal government is subsidizing if the state regulator wants that he should start paying. What of our money that is inside that subsidy? So the argument is that we are subsidizing manpower through our contribution to the national purse. And because we are doing that, when the costings came, you are supposed to make the people feel the impact of that subsidy by not having this high-end tariff. Then the question again is, who is taking the money that the consumers are paying when the government has already subsidized it? So somebody is taking money per kilowatt of a charge, which is above 60 naira.
Right.
Who is taking it? Because if the federal government has subsidized it, and you are still charging the people, so there's a miasma. Who is taking it? That money. So NERC has to explain to us. But because EERC has come to say that this money is there, that is what they just removed. There's nothing else. They just removed that subsidy. And even the EERC said this is not permanent. This is going to be adjustable as the dynamics of the market goes. If the federal government removes subsidy, for example, it goes back to what it is to do. But now federal government subsidy and the discos are still charging Nigerians.
Okay, let's cast our minds back.
Very briefly, yes.
There's something that just came to my mind right now. Could this be all this battle? Could this be the money is being owed in the power sector, the trillions, could this be the reason why there's this whole back and forth?
Well, the power sector, they have not, although there are some debts which the federal government has said they will clear.
Because of the recovery.
But also there have been interventions by the federal government in the past where there was like a bailout. I remember the 2016 episode, and I remember there were other bailouts for the schools especially. And the private sector has been investing, in the generating. We have the Geribu, we have other ones and the rest. So the federal government also is trying to clear its debt and the rest. But it is wrong, even if that assumption is correct, to pass the
burden to
burden to consumers.
All right, now we're already out of time. We have another guest on standby now. I have to ask you this final question. Did Enugu State get it right?
Yeah, Enugu State has taken the bold vision. He has taken the direction. And other subnationals are trying to copy from Enugu State. And Eric is afraid because there are applications now, there are like 9 states to also establish his own electricity regulatory commission. So if this is allowed to stand, Enugu State has set a precedent that will haunt NERIC forever.
All right.
But again, all those things have to be tested in court. So the courts will have the finance, and not even the National Assembly. Because when laws are made, it is left for the court to interpret the laws. All right. And then we'll now get, so we look forward to an interesting time ahead. Definitely. And we hope that the consumer and Enugu State wins in this battle.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ambrose, for joining. I wish you had more time, but this conversation will continue at least for the rest of the week. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me on the show.